I've always liked yanderes. Because of that, I turned my childhood friend, Bai Ningbing, into a real yandere. The childhood friend who grew up with me is now gripping an ice-cold knife, pinning me tightly against the wall. He smiled sweetly, but his eyes were filled with twisted satisfaction. The back of my neck pressed against the freezing wall. Only then did I finally realize. It sounds a little messed up, but my obsession with yanderes started back in middle school, while the boys in my class gathered together, talking about girls' looks and figures. I was buried in rare criminal psychology textbooks, taking notes. Delusional attachment, possessive obsession. I could explain every one of them by heart. I filled 3 thick notebooks with observations and analysis, putting in more effort than preparing for college entrance exams. I repeatedly studied the corruption arcs of yandere characters, writing thousands of words of analysis, breaking down their childhood trauma, and organizing everything into neatly labeled folders. 3 stages of corruption: early, middle, and late. Resolve, emotional dependence, and psychological control each had their own section. Every folder was packed full. One day, my roommate Chenlei borrowed my laptop to work on his paper. He accidentally opened one of those folders. He stared at the screen in silence for a long time, then patted me on the shoulder and said, "You should really see a psychologist." I simply replied, "You just don't get it." Reality was just too bland. Classes, exams, finding a job, everything felt painfully ordinary. Everyone was walking down the exact same track. Even falling in love and breaking up followed the same script. Even people's emotions were as plain as a glass of water. But a yandere's love was different. It was a love that could burn everything to ashes. A love where their eyes held no one but you. Their entire life became someone else's whole world. Just imagining someone like that holding me at the center of their heart was enough to send a shiver down my spine. The exhilarating kind. Still, I knew the difference between liking fictional yanderes and actually being involved with one. Characters in fiction, no matter how obsessive, could never crawl out of the screen. I could always close the game or the video and walk away, watching everything unfold from the safety of the sidelines, like staring at a beast through the bars of a sturdy cage. As long as the cage held, I would always be safe. That was what I had always believed. Bai Ningbing knew every one of my quirks. We lived right across the hall from each other, from kindergarten all the way through high school. We were classmates. I hated dealing with passwords, so I let him know all of my account logins. Whenever I organized my collection of yandere analyses, he would sit beside me, quietly doing his homework. Every now and then, he'd glance at my screen with the same unreadable expression. "You're looking at this stuff again. You wouldn't understand." I always answered. Bai Ningbing was as ordinary as a cup of warm water. Above average grades, above average looks, and an above average personality. There was nothing wrong with his features, yet he was the kind of person who disappeared into any crowd. Growing up, I had never once seen him lose his composure. Label, Bai Ningbing. Age 19, personality and interesting. So whenever I fangirled over yandere characters, I'd brag to my roommates. If I ever got targeted by a yandere for life, his face never once crossed my mind. He was Bai Ningbing. Safe, normal, and completely harmless. The last person in the world I'd ever associate with a yandere. That's what I always believed. During the winter of my sophomore year, I bought a rare out-of-print yandere manga from a second-hand marketplace. The seller claimed it was in mint condition. But when it arrived, I found a page where someone had furiously scribbled over a name in red ink. The name had been crossed out so hard it nearly tore through the paper. I snapped a picture and sent it to Bai Ningbing. Then I casually analyzed it. Look at this handwriting. The person must have been extremely emotional while writing it. Red ink feels aggressive. They circled a girl's name. She was probably a love rival or a friend they fell out with. This person has a strong sense of possessiveness. They clearly show obsessive tendencies. He simply replied, "You think so? If the obsession runs so deep they still leave marks in a book they're selling. That's practically textbook yandere behavior. Doesn't that creep you out?" he asked. Creep me out. The chat window stayed silent for a long time. Then he finally sent one message. "So that's what you like." "Of course I like it." Another long silence followed. Eventually, he replied with a single word. "Okay." Much later, I realized that one word had carried an entirely different meaning. That same winter, I started dating an upperclassman. She was 1 year ahead of me, and the vice president of the student council. She was attractive and had a bright, outgoing personality. My reason for dating her was simple. I wanted to experience a normal relationship in real life and find out how different it really was from the yandere romances I'd imagined countless times. The answer was completely different. Senior Sue was the definition of gentle. She'd leave breakfast on my desk ahead of time. Whenever we played basketball, she'd hand me a bottle of water with the cap already opened. At exactly midnight, she never forgot my birthday. Her emotions were always balanced. When she was happy, she smiled. When she was upset, she frowned. She never lost herself for anyone else. After exactly 1 month together, I broke up with her. My reason was vague. It just doesn't feel right. Senior Sue didn't argue. She accepted it gracefully and said goodbye with dignity. I thought that would be the end of it. 3 days later, she stopped me outside my dormitory. Her face was deathly pale. It wasn't the look of someone who had been crying. It was pure fear. Even her voice trembled. "Luyan, your childhood friend, Bai Ningbing. What kind of person is he?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "He came to my dorm yesterday." Senior Sue took a deep breath. "He knocked politely. He introduced himself politely. He even sat down politely. But then he took out a stack of photographs and slammed them onto my desk." "What photographs?" I asked. A chill instantly ran down my spine. What else did he say? He said, "Luyan already broke up with you because he thought you didn't truly like him. But I know. You already have a boyfriend. You only agreed to date Luyan to make him jealous. I won't judge your decision. But from now on, stay away from Luyan. Next time, these photos will be mailed to your boyfriend." I froze where I stood. After saying all that, he stood up and gave her a polite bow. "Sorry for disturbing you." Then he quietly left. Senior Sue looked at me. Her eyes filled with fear. He photographed me for an entire month, and I never noticed. Luyan, who exactly is he? I couldn't answer. At that moment, even I could no longer tell who Bai Ningbing really was. That night, back at my dorm, I searched through all of our chat history. Scrolling upward, page after page, it was always me talking, while he listened to me ramble about manga. I'd complain about finals. Or tell him my weekend plans. Before, I assumed he just wasn't very talkative. But now, looking back at those brief replies, they weren't indifference at all. They were like a hunter, hidden in the grass, remaining completely silent, while memorizing every detail about its prey. I called my mom. I casually asked about Bai Ningbing. She said, "He's such a nice young man. He even brought us some cured meat yesterday." He stayed for about half an hour and chatted with us. "What did you talk about?" "Oh, nothing special. He just asked about your childhood and whether you'd been calling home lately. Questions about my past, questions about my present." I hung up the phone and sat there without moving for a long time. Then an absurd thought filled my mind. I started getting excited. Don't get me wrong. It's just that something I'd loved for 10 years had suddenly stepped out of books and stood right in front of me. The beast I'd watched safely behind bars for a decade had somehow found an unlocked cage door. And now it was slowly walking toward me. The person I'd always believed was gentle and harmless had suddenly revealed the sharp fangs I'd always imagined. My first reaction wasn't fear. It was an electric thrill, I have to admit. My mind exploded with excitement. Bai Ningbing was a real yandere. A living, breathing yandere. I'd known him for 18 years. He lived across the hall and talked to me every single day. Yet that same Bai Ningbing had been stalking people, taking secret photographs, and delivering the cruelest warnings in the softest possible voice. It was like believing your neighbor owned a friendly golden retriever, until one day it opened its mouth and you saw wolf's fangs instead. And the worst part was, I'd loved wolves for the past 10 years. So when he invited me to dinner the next day, I accepted without hesitation. We met at the family restaurant behind the university, the place we'd been eating at since childhood. He ordered 4 dishes, every single one of my favorites. He poured me tea, served food onto my plate, and smiled. He even asked whether I'd been sleeping well lately. Bai Ningbing was everything with seniors who you're doing. His hand paused for half a second. Then he calmly placed a piece of sweet and sour pork into my bowl. Yes. He didn't deny it. He didn't panic. He didn't offer any unnecessary explanation. It was as casual as answering whether he'd finished his homework. Why? He set down his chopsticks and looked at me. His eyes were still the same as always, calm like a windless lake, without the slightest ripple. Because you told me what you liked. You sent me those lists. You said circling someone's name in red ink was exciting. You said that strong possessiveness was what made someone feel like a yandere. You said you liked that. So, I became that for you. My heart slammed against my ribs. Not from fear, but because those words hit me like a spark landing in dry grass. So, you stalked her. You photographed her for a month. 3 months, he corrected softly. Starting from the first time you mentioned her. 3 months. Back then, I hadn't even considered asking her out. I'd only casually said, "There's a senior in the student council who's pretty cute." I took a deep breath, trying desperately to suppress the smile threatening to appear. I absolutely couldn't smile now. That would make me looked completely insane. "Aren't you scared?" he asked. I looked up while chewing. "What do you think?" He watched me for several seconds. Then the corner of his lips curved upward. "I think you're trying very hard not to smile." I swear to heaven. My face had been wearing nothing but a look of genuine shock. Yet Bai Ningbing looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't gentleness. It wasn't calmness. It was certainty. Absolute certainty, like a hunter watching prey step into a trap. Like a collector finally obtaining the treasure he'd searched for all his life. Lian. He quietly called my name. His voice blended into the restaurant's noise. Yet it reached my ears with perfect clarity. "Do you know something? I like you." I froze. "Since when?" He answered. "Since middle school. The first time you talked to me about yanderes. That was 6 years ago. You said that a yander's love was extreme, exclusive, and destructive. You said that being loved like that must be the happiest feeling in the world." He spoke very slowly, like opening an old box that had been sealed for years. I remembered those words for 6 whole years. I opened my mouth, but not a single word came out. During those 6 years, I kept learning. He looked straight at me. His eyes remained calm, without the slightest ripple. I learned what the kind of love you described should look like. Watching, observing, removing anyone who got too close to you. I learned it all from you. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. My heart slammed against my ribs, burning hot. All I could hear was the roar of blood rushing through my ears. My fingertips trembled slightly, but it wasn't the kind of shaking that comes from fear. It was excitement. After 20 years, this was the first time I had ever felt a thrill rising from the depths of my bones. "So, what are you going to do?" I heard myself ask. My voice stayed unbelievably steady. "Lock me up." Bai Ningbing lowered his gaze, as if he were seriously considering it. "Not yet. Not yet." I repeated those 4 words over and over in my head. Every single time, the adrenaline surged even higher. That meant when the time finally came, he really would lock me away. "So when is that time?" "When everyone more important to you than me is gone." His tone never changed, like he was discussing tomorrow's lunch. "When you're left with only me in this world." "And then?" I asked. He stood up. He picked up his bag and leaned close to my ear. His warm breath brushed against my skin. His next words were as light as a needle, yet they pierced straight through me. Every hair on my body stood up. "Then you'll belong to me forever." He left. I remained seated by myself. More than half the dishes were still untouched. The waiter asked if I wanted them packed. Yes. I answered naturally. My hands never shook. I even fixed my hair while looking at my phone. But I knew, from this moment onward, nothing would ever be the same. On the surface, I acted completely normal. Back at the dorm, I told my roommates Bai Ningbing was acting strangely. I told them he had stalked someone and secretly photographed her for 3 months. The room fell silent. Chenlei patted me on the shoulder again. "Lu Yan, this time you seriously need to see a psychiatrist." "Sure, I'll go tomorrow." But the next day, I never went to the clinic. I went straight to Bai Ningbing's house. He answered the door wearing casual clothes. His hair was slightly messy, A book was still in his hand. It was the mystery novel I had recommended last month. He wasn't surprised to see me at all. He simply stepped aside and let me in, just like every other time over the past 18 years. Have you eaten? Not yet. I'll cook some noodles. He turned and walked into the kitchen. I followed and leaned against the doorway, watching him. He took eggs and ingredients out of the refrigerator. His movements were exactly the same as always. But everything felt different. I knew that somewhere in the knife rack, there might be a blade meant just for me. I knew his phone might contain an app, tracking every place I went. I knew those calm, emotionless eyes. It's 6 years of bottled-up obsession. And those thoughts made my hands shake with excitement. "What are you thinking about?" he asked without turning around. I smiled. "When did you buy that knife at the back of the rack?" His chopping paused for just a second. Then he continued. "Last month, you said you liked crab." I couldn't stop myself from smiling. I really couldn't. Bai Ningbing turned around. The kitchen knife was still in his hand. The kitchen light shone from behind him. Half of his face was hidden in shadow. His expression remained calm, but something in his eyes had changed. It was a look I had seen countless times in anime. His pupils narrowed slightly. His gaze grew dangerously intense, the unmistakable look of a yandere. "Lu Yan." His voice was soft. "You're smiling." He took one slow step toward me. The kitchen knife still rested in his hand. "You're scared." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." Only half a step separated us now. I imagined your reaction countless times. The day you finally learned the truth. I thought you'd be terrified. I thought you'd get angry or run away. He slowly raised his free hand. His cold fingertips rested gently against my cheek. "But I never expected you to get excited." His thumb softly brushed across my skin, as if touching a priceless treasure. "Lu Yan, do you know something?" He leaned in. His lips nearly brushed against my ear. His voice was as light as a drifting cloud. "You're even less normal than I am." He was right. He was absolutely freaking right. I had always believed my obsession with yanderes was nothing more than a safe fantasy behind a screen, watching danger from a place where I couldn't be hurt, just chasing that adrenaline rush. But when a real yandere stood right in front of me, holding a knife, with eyes filled only with my reflection, I didn't step back. I leaned even closer. Bai Ningbing noticed. His eyelashes trembled ever so slightly. It was the first time that night he failed to hide his emotions. "You're not afraid of me." "I am," I answered. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. I wasn't lying. I truly was afraid. But it wasn't the kind of fear that makes you run. It was the feeling of standing at the edge of a cliff. You know there's a bottomless abyss below. One jump, and you'll be completely destroyed. Yet when the wind rises from the depths, every drop of blood in your body screams, "Jump, jump, jump." Bai Ningbing stared at me for a long time. Then he lowered the knife and quietly went back to cooking. I finished that bowl of noodles at his place. We even played games for another 2 hours. At 10 sharp, I returned to my dorm. Everything felt unbelievably normal. So normal that I almost wondered if that moment in the kitchen had only been my imagination. But I knew it wasn't. Because after that day, everything changed. Bai Ningbing stopped hiding. Location sharing requests started flooding my phone. Every single invitation came from him. And every single time, I accepted. My social accounts kept showing unfamiliar login notifications. The login location was always his dorm room. One by one, the people around me drifted away. Not because I had done anything wrong. It was because Bai Ningbing handled each of them differently. With Chenlei, he chose kindness. He added him on WeChat. Every few days, he'd politely ask how I was doing. His tone was gentle. His manners were flawless, like the most thoughtful person imaginable, but every conversation always ended with the exact same sentence. "Thank you for looking after Luyan, but you won't have to anymore. I'm enough." Chenlei told me those words sounded completely ordinary. And that was exactly what made them terrifying. With my mom, he took the perfect son route. Every week, he'd bring gifts to the house. He'd sit and chat with her. He'd replace light bulbs and fix the plumbing, always smiling whenever my mom praised him over the phone. I couldn't say a word. She had no idea what he had really done. That same day, he quietly photographed every corner of my childhood bedroom. The pictures were stored in an encrypted folder. The password was my birthday. To everyone around me, he declared his ownership in the simplest possible way. No threats. No warnings. He simply appeared. Whenever I talked to another girl, he would quietly stand nearby. No arguments. No interruptions. He would simply watch her. His expression was as calm as still water, but every girl he looked at never approached me again. No one ever explained why. It was as if they had all agreed. One by one, they quietly disappeared from my life, as though they had never been there. I watched everything unfold. I watched Bai Ningbing slowly isolate me. Little by little, my world grew smaller, and disturbingly, I found myself enjoying it. Every morning, the first thing I did was check my phone, looking for some new trace he had left behind, a cryptic message, a late-night like, or another candid photo of me I'd never seen before. Every discovery felt like opening a mystery box. I never knew what I'd find that day, but I knew there would always be something. My heart would race. I'd wait in anticipation. Life suddenly felt strangely different. Outwardly, I told everyone I was scared. I complained to Chenlei that he was getting worse, that something was wrong with him. I said I was trying to deal with it. Chenlei believed me and offered advice. He told me to call the police, tell his parents, or report it to the school. I said I'd think about it. But deep down, I knew I wasn't going to do any of that. Lying in bed each night, I replayed his silent surveillance and those subtle warnings. Whenever he looked at me, there was a calm but unwavering certainty in his eyes. I'd find myself smiling quietly under the covers. This was what I wanted. Or at least, what I had believed I wanted for years. Someone who pushed everyone else away and focused only on me. Someone who saw me as their one and only reason to live. Someone who would do anything to keep me to themselves. I thought I'd finally found that, in a way. I had shaped him over 6 years. Every book, every folder, every character analysis had slowly influenced the person he became. He felt like my greatest creation. And somehow, I was becoming the center of his world. The realization was overwhelming. Then one rainy day, he invited me to his apartment off campus. He'd moved out during his sophomore year. It was a small apartment near the university. I'd been there many times before. The door was unlocked. The moment I stepped inside, I caught a strange smell. It wasn't blood. It was cleaner, yet somehow even more unsettling. The sharp scent of disinfectant. I'm in the bedroom, his voice drifted out from inside. I crossed the living room and opened the bedroom door. I froze. The room had completely changed. Heavy blackout curtains covered the windows. Not a ray of light came through. The ceiling light was gone. Warm yellow strip lights replaced it. The lighting was soft, but the atmosphere felt impossible to escape. The walls were covered in photographs. All of them were of me, from middle school until now. Graduation photos, ID photos, faces cropped from old class group pictures. Even candid shots from the cafeteria last month. They were arranged in chronological order, stretching from the doorway all the way to the bed. Like a timeline spanning 6 years. I was staring at 6 years of my own life. Middle school. Blue and white school uniform. Running laps, soaked in sweat. High school with braces. Smiling awkwardly at the camera. Looking unbelievably goofy. Then college. Longer hair, dress shirts, trying to look like an adult. Beneath every photograph, there was a handwritten note from Bai Ningbing. You once said obsessive love is absolute. Year 2. You once said you wanted to be someone's entire world. Year 3. You wrote over 5,000 words analyzing that character. The Yandere. Year 4. You collected a complete out-of-print Yandere manga series. Year 5. You posted online. If someone like that locked me away forever, it'd almost be worth it. I saved a screenshot. In the 6th year, my eyes slowly moved down the wall. They stopped at the final photograph. It had been taken just last week. I was standing on my dorm balcony, talking on the phone. I had no idea from which window across the way he had taken it. In the picture, I was smiling while talking to someone. Beneath it was a handwritten note. Year 6. Soon, only I will remain by your side. A chill suddenly ran through me. I spun around. Bai Ningbing was standing only a short distance behind me. He wore loose white sleepwear. His long hair rested over his shoulders. Bare feet touched the cold floor. The warm yellow lights framed his face. His features looked unexpectedly gentle. Only his eyes shone brightly. Nothing was hidden behind calm anymore. Everything had surfaced. 6 years of obsession. Laid completely bare. Luyan, he called my name softly. Do you like it? My throat tightened. Not a single word came out. The answer that should have escaped my lips never did. Instead, my gaze drifted away. It landed on the bed. Each corner had polished metal fixtures attached. For gray restraint straps hung neatly from them. Each was padded with soft fabric. They looked harmless, but clearly weren't decorative. Their length had been carefully measured, enough to sit up, turn over, or reach the bedside table. But not enough to reach the door. On the bedside table sat neatly sliced melon. Each piece had a small fork inserted into it. Everything was arranged with unsettling precision. That excessive attention to detail sent chills crawling across my back. Bai Ningbing. Who did you prepare all of this for? The restraints, he replied calmly. I know what they are. I stared into his eyes. I'm asking who they're for. He tilted his head slightly. His expression seemed almost puzzled. As if I'd asked an obvious question. For you. The words were quiet. Yet they hit me with crushing weight. You said before. It wasn't time yet. He stepped closer, cutting me off. Everyone more important to you than me is gone now. Your mother told me last week to spend more time with you. She already treats me like family. Chenlei moved to another dorm building. He didn't even tell you. Everyone you met at school. Friends, classmates. They've all drifted away. He stopped in front of me, looking directly into my eyes. The light reflected in his pupils. They burned with quiet certainty. Luyan, now you only have me. He smiled. In 18 years. I had never seen a smile like that. It wasn't his usual faint expression. It was absolute certainty. His cool fingertips gently lifted my chin. In that instant, my heart skipped violently. This time, it wasn't excitement. It was real fear. A chill crept up from my feet. It climbed straight up my spine. Only then did I realize something. I had always admired Yandere fiction, but only when it stayed safely in fiction. Characters behind a screen. Stories that could be paused at any moment. From the safety of a comfortable distance. I had only ever been a spectator. Not like this. Not someone who spent 6 years learning every one of my preferences. Not someone who shaped his entire life around them, only to turn around and treat me like I already belonged to him. Not someone like this. With blackout curtains drawn shut, and the smell of disinfectant filling every corner of the room. Not the person standing before me, looking at me with the gaze I had once dreamed about. Softly declaring that the time had finally come, liking obsessive fictional romances, and becoming the target of real obsession, were never the same thing. I only realized that the instant before the restraints were about to close. Only then did I truly understand. I shoved him away, then turned and bolted for the door. He didn't chase me. He simply stood in the bedroom doorway, barefoot, wearing a white nightgown that reached his ankles, quietly watching me stumble toward the front door. He never even took a step. He didn't need to. He already knew I couldn't get far. The hallway lights flicked on one floor after another as I ran. I slipped and missed 2 steps. My knee slammed into the concrete wall. The pain shot through my leg. But I didn't dare stop. Rain blew in through the windows, striking my face, mixing with the cold sweat running down the first floor. I burst out of the building and dove straight into the pouring rain. Behind me, I heard a window slide open. I spun around. At the 3rd floor window, he was standing there. The rain blurred his outline. I couldn't make out his expression. He didn't shout. He didn't lose control like in a drama. He simply stood there in silence, slowly raising one hand. Something dangled from it. My phone. My entire body froze. I frantically searched my pockets. Empty. When had he taken it? When he helped me earlier? Or even before that? The moment I walked into the apartment, I hadn't noticed a thing. My phone held every account I owned, my contacts and payment information, even the record of everywhere I'd been. Without my phone, I could barely navigate this city. The rain pounded against my face. I looked up through the pane. He lowered his eyes. Through the curtain of rain. Across 3 floors. Across 6 years. I could read his lips. Just 3 silent words. I couldn't hear them, but I knew exactly what they were. You can't escape. I clenched my teeth, then ran deeper into the rain. Behind me were his eyes. The wall covered in photographs. The cold metal restraints beside the bed. The person I had unknowingly shaped for 6 years. My most perfect creation. Rain poured into my collar, cold enough to make my bones shake. But I knew. The cold wasn't what made me tremble. By the time I reached the 3rd intersection, I looked down and saw my own shaking hands. My fingertips were numb. My lips were pale. Even my breathing had lost its rhythm. Yet the corners of my mouth kept rising on their own. I was truly afraid, terrified beyond words. My legs felt weak. Every step made me want to look back, to see if he was following. But beneath that bone-deep fear, something else was still burning inside me. That voice kept whispering. He didn't disappoint me. He had turned every fantasy I ever cherished into reality. Perfectly. And now I was the one being hunted by him, running, trying to escape from the palm of his hand. That feeling was beyond anything I had ever imagined. 1,000 times more intense. The rain kept pouring harder. I sprinted across the 4th intersection, then ducked into a narrow alley with no streetlights. My back pressed against the cold, wet brick wall. I gasped for air. My heartbeat felt ready to shatter my ribs. The images from that room flooded my mind all over again. The wall covered with photographs. 6 years of meticulous records. The blackout curtains. The warm yellow lights and the metal rings. The padded chains. And that perfectly arranged plate of sliced fruit with toothpicks already prepared. I covered my face. Rain slipped through my fingers, mixing with sweat as it ran down. Suddenly my shoulders began to shake. Something buried deep inside my chest surged upward. I bit down on the back of my hand, but I couldn't hold back the laughter. It burst into the empty alley. I crouched in the puddles, laughing until my whole body trembled. I was genuinely terrified, but at the same time, I had never felt so exhilarated. I cursed under my breath and looked toward the sky, letting the rain slam into my face. You're completely hopeless. My phone was gone. My ID was inside the phone case. My wallet was still in the dorm. And if he had already reached my dorm, all I had left was a set of soaking wet clothes and a pair of waterlogged shoes. He would find me, without a doubt. For 6 years, he had studied every one of my preferences. I once said I liked crab. He remembered it. I joked about obsessive devotion. He remembered that too. Every casual comment I ever made, every fantasy I mentioned, he remembered them all. Every single detail. He had become my most perfect creation. And now that creation wanted to keep its creator. I pushed myself back to my feet and wiped the rain from my face. There were surveillance cameras near the alley. He could trace my route through them. The bus stop had electronic records. Convenience stores logged payments and movement. Everything left a trail. This entire city was filled with clues about me. No phone. No money. No ID. Nothing left to prove who I even was. I couldn't get away. Deep down, I had known that all along. The rain slowly weakened. I stood at the mouth of the alley. The clouds split apart. Moonlight poured through, spreading across the rain-soaked asphalt. Then I heard footsteps. Light, steady. Every step perfectly measured. As if every second had been calculated. I didn't turn around. The footsteps drew closer, finally stopping just a few meters behind me. Have you run enough? He asked softly. His voice was as calm as ever, like he was simply asking if I'd eaten. I remained silent. You've been running for 40 minutes. You circled 3 city blocks, past 7 security cameras, and stopped outside 2 convenience stores. You have no money. No phone. He paused. You can't escape. I slowly turned around. He stood beneath the moonlight, holding a transparent umbrella, still wearing that same white nightgown. Only now he had changed into rain boots. His damp bangs clung to his forehead, framing his face. In one hand, he was holding a dry towel. In his other hand, he was holding my phone. Come on, he said. Let's go home. Home. I stared at the towel in his hand. Then I looked into his calm eyes. Then at the mud clinging to the hem of his nightgown. He had chased after me for 40 straight minutes, wearing nothing but a nightgown and rain boots, walking through puddles and mud, just to find me, just to bring me back. My throat tightened. It wasn't fear. A sentence rose to my lips, and I swallowed it back down. How the hell are you this perfect? I never said it aloud. Instead, I smiled. He noticed immediately. The corners of his eyes curved ever so slightly. You're excited. I am not. He took one step closer, then gently draped the towel over my head. His movements were slow, almost painfully gentle. My name reached me from behind the towel. His voice was muffled, carrying a faint smile. When you were running, you looked back 3 times. You were checking whether I'd caught up. He lowered the towel a little. My eyes met his. His face was only inches away beneath the moonlight. His gaze never left mine. You weren't running away. You were inviting me. He took my hand. His fingertips were cold, but his palm was warm. Let's go. I followed him back, one step at a time. Back to the apartment covered with my photographs. Back to the bed with those 4 restraints beside it. Back to the cage he had spent 6 years preparing. My mouth kept saying no. But deep inside, I had been waiting for this day. The rain finally stopped. The moon emerged from behind the clouds. Its light turned the road pale. I walked behind him, watching his silhouette beneath the umbrella, watching the hem of his nightgown sway, watching his bare ankles above the rain boots. In the silent night, only our footsteps could be heard. Then I heard my own voice, softly breaking the silence. Bai Ningbing. Could you replace those restraints with stainless steel? They'd be easier to keep clean. He stopped walking, then turned around under the moonlight. His eyes curved into 2 bright crescents. Run if you want. Then he tightened his grip around my hand.